Milk does not look like the beginning of a block of cheddar, a wheel of Parmesan, or a soft piece of brie. But cheese is really what happens when people learn how to control milk instead of letting it spoil. At its core, cheese making is the process of separating milk into solids and liquid, then shaping, salting, and aging those solids until they become something richer, more stable, and full of flavor. That sounds simple, but for thousands of years it has been one of humanity's smartest food tricks. What makes cheese so interesting is that it sits right between accident and control. If milk is left alone, it naturally sours and can form an acid curd and whey. But cheese making takes that natural tendency and turns it into a reliable system. Instead of waiting for milk to go bad, people learned how to guide the process with bacteria, enzymes, salt, pressure, and time. That is why cheese can be soft or hard, mild or sharp, fresh or aged for years, even though it all starts with the same basic raw material, milk. The basic idea: curds and whey. To understand cheese, you really only need to understand one moment: milk splits. The solid part is the curd, and the liquid part is the whey. The curd holds most of the casein protein and much of the fat. The whey carries away much of the water and many of the soluble parts of milk. Cheese making is really the art of deciding how much water to remove, how firm the curd should become, and what should happen to it after that. The more moisture left in the cheese, the softer it usually is. The more moisture removed, the firmer and longer lasting it can become. How milk stops being milk? Fresh milk looks smooth, but inside it is a complex mixture of water, fat, proteins, sugar, and minerals. One of the most important proteins is casein. As long as the milk stays in its usual condition, those proteins remain suspended in the liquid. Cheese begins when those proteins are pushed into clumping together. That can happen through acid, through enzymes like rennet, or through both. Once that happens, the milk thickens into a gel, and that gel becomes the curd that eventually turns into cheese. The job of starter cultures. One of the first big steps in modern cheese making is adding starter cultures, which are beneficial bacteria. These bacteria feed on lactose, the natural sugar in milk, and turn it into lactic acid. That acid is a big deal. It helps drive the whole cheese-making process, affects how the curd forms, pushes moisture out of the curd, influences safety and preservation, and helps shape final flavor and texture. In other words, the bacteria are not just there in the background. They are one of the main engines of cheese-making. The job of rennet in many cheeses, acid alone is not the whole story. Cheesemakers also add a coagulant, usually rennet. Rennet contains enzymes that help the milk proteins clump together more efficiently. This gives a firmer curd and opens the door to many classic cheese styles. Historically, rennet was often obtained from the stomach of young calves, which is why old stories about early cheese often involve animal stomach containers. Today, cheesemakers can also use other sources, but the basic purpose is the same: help milk set into curd in a controlled way. When the curd is cut after the milk coagulates, the curd is cut. This part may seem small, but it changes everything. Cutting the curd helps release whey. Smaller curd pieces usually lose more moisture, which can lead to a firmer cheese. Larger curd pieces keep more moisture, which can help make a softer cheese. After cutting, the curds are often heated and stirred. That encourages even more whey to leave and helps determine the final texture. So when people say different cheeses come from different methods, this is one of the main places where those differences begin. Draining whey and shaping texture. Once the curds have formed and been cut, the whey has to be removed. This is where cheese begins to stop behaving like milk and start behaving like a solid food. As moisture leaves, the curd becomes denser. Acid development also helps this process by promoting syneresis, which is just the technical term for the curd squeezing out moisture. This step matters because moisture content strongly affects safety, shelf life, body, and texture. A cheese with more moisture behaves very differently from one that has been drained and dried much more thoroughly. Why salt matters so much? Salt is easy to overlook because it seems like just a flavoring, but in cheese it does much more than that. Salt helps with taste, helps preservation, and helps pull out additional moisture. It also affects how the cheese develops over time. Without salt, many cheeses would not age or behave the same way. This is one reason cheese can last so much longer than fresh milk. Cheese making is not only about turning liquid into solid. It is also about building a more stable food. Pressing. Turning curds into a cheese after salting. Many cheeses are pressed. Pressing helps shape the cheese and expel more whey. The amount of pressure and how long it is applied both matter. A lightly handled cheese may stay soft and open. A heavily pressed cheese can become dense, firm, and better suited to long aging. This is why a fresh cheese and a hard-aged cheese can feel like completely different foods even though they may begin with the same steps. The difference comes from how much moisture stays, how tightly the curd is packed, and what happens next. Aging. Where flavor really appears, fresh curds are only the beginning. Aging, also called ripening, is where many cheeses truly become themselves. During aging, enzymes and microorganisms break down proteins and fats. That slow breakdown creates the textures, aromas, and flavors people associate with different cheese types. A soft mild cheese and a hard sharp cheese are not just different because one sat around longer. They are different because time, moisture, microbes, and chemistry all work together under controlled conditions. Aging can turn a fairly simple fresh curd into something nutty, earthy, creamy, crumbly, or deeply savory. Why there are so many cheeses? Once you understand the main steps, the huge variety of cheeses makes more sense. Change the milk source, the bacteria, the coagulant, the size of the cut curd, the heating, the salt, the pressing, the humidity, the airflow, or the aging time, and you get a different result. That is why hundreds of cheeses exist around the world. Historically, many of these varieties were not invented in laboratories. They developed in local places under local conditions, with local milk, microbes, weather, and habits. Over time, each place produced a cheese with its own personality. The history of cheese is ancient, but the exact first moment it appeared is unknown. Some origin stories are legends, like the famous tale of milk carried in a pouch made from an animal's stomach, where heat and natural rennet caused it to separate into curds and whey. Britannica presents that as a traditional legend, not a proven historical event. Stronger evidence comes from archaeology. A Nature study on early pottery found direct chemical evidence that some prehistoric vessels were used to separate milk curds from whey, supporting the idea that people were making reduced lactose dairy foods thousands of years ago. Why cheese mattered so much in daily life? This is the part that makes cheese bigger than just food. Fresh milk spoils quickly. Cheese solves that problem by removing water and using fermentation and salt to make milk last much longer. That made it easier to store nutrition, move it, trade it, and use milk beyond the short window after milking. The archaeological evidence also suggests another advantage. Processing milk into cheese or similar products would have made dairy more usable for populations with limited lactose tolerance. So cheese was not just tasty. It was practical technology. It helped turn a fragile food into a durable one. How cheese spread and changed. Britannica notes that cheese-making spread from the Middle East into Europe, and by the Middle Ages it had become an established food there. For a long time, cheesemaking was local, seasonal, and closely guarded. Recipes were not always written down clearly, and a lot depended on experience. A cheese from one valley or monastery could end up very different from one made elsewhere. Later, as microbiology and chemistry became better understood, cheesemaking became more controlled. That is how the industry moved from guarded craft toward repeatable food science, while still keeping the old traditions alive. Cheddar is a simple example. Cheddar is a good example of how process creates identity. Britannica describes traditional cheddar making as cutting and cheddaring the firm curd to drain whey, then pressing it into form and aging it for months or even longer. That means cheddar is not just milk with a label. It is milk that has gone through a particular sequence of draining, packing, pressing, and aging. The richer, sharper taste that people expect from cheddar comes from that process, especially the time spent aging. Why modern cheesemaking still follows ancient logic? Modern cheesemakers use cleaner equipment, careful sanitation, controlled cultures, and precise measurements, but the basic logic is still ancient. Encourage the right bacteria. Coagulate the milk. Separate curds from whey. Control moisture. Add salt. Shape the cheese. Let time do the rest. Even with all the technology available today, cheese still depends on the same core transformation that early makers discovered long ago. Milk can be preserved and reinvented by changing its chemistry. So when you look at a piece of cheese, you are really looking at preserved milk, guided by bacteria, enzymes, moisture control, and time. It is one of the oldest examples of people learning how to work with nature instead of fighting it. Cheese feels ordinary because it is everywhere, but the process behind it is surprisingly elegant. Curds and whey are not just nursery rhyme words. They are the foundation of one of humanity's oldest and smartest food systems. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe. Then tap the bell icon to turn on all notifications so you never miss any of our future videos.